All right, so we shall begin. um, so today we shall continue with the writing test, task 2, which of course is the essay writing. We've been able to go through the preambles, the do's and don'ts, otherwise known as the pros and cons. We've also understood the major keys that you need to bring in to have a standard essay writing. And of course, I'm referring to the use of linking words, the use of sequencers and idioms, definitely. Now, we've also understood in our previous class the things you should avoid when writing an essay, and that will be referring to informal expressions because essay by default is a formal writing, so it should maintain formal status. And to achieve this, you must avoid acronyms in your sentence construction, except in a situation where you have established the full meaning of the acronym in a previous sentence. Then, of course, to avoid repetitions, you then have to use the acronym instead of the full meaning again. We also understood that when you are trying to achieve advanced expressions, you should avoid ambiguous words because that would create ambiguity in your sentence. And of course, you'll be giving room to the examiner to use the other meanings of the word rather than your own perspective while constructing the sentence. We also understood in during our last session that your essay writing should avoid abbreviations and slangs. You know, abbreviations and slangs, a lot of persons, because of the constant chatting and quick responses, we have developed the habit of using shorthands, abbreviations, or abbreviated words to express ourselves. And because it has become a part of us, we tend to forget that essays are formal writings and you are expected to avoid all of such means of expressions. So you see certain persons writing just letter U instead of YOU. You see certain persons writing FOR instead of writing number 4 instead of FOR, and a number of other expressions they use. So IELTS essay does not need any of that. So you'd have to ensure that every word you're writing or spelling has to be written in full, right? Also, during your writing, you are expected to avoid turgid words. These turgid words are those words that are considered to be high-sounding words, you know? So you don't bring in high-sounding words because you may be breaching the rule of communication. So examiner may not actually see the expressions you've made from the perspective made them, but then because they are turgid words, the proper and easy flow and ease of understanding will be affected. So you are strongly advised to avoid all of such. Now let's jump on the formula for writing an essay. In essay writing, you are expected to structure your essay in a way that is considered to be standard according to IELTS examiners. Now, looking at this formula, we have P1, P2, P3, and of course, P4. Now, by the virtue of the P's right here, you are meant to have 4 paragraphs because each P stands for paragraph. So your essay should show 4 paragraphs. Do not write less than 4 and do not write more than 4. So having a 4 paragraph essay simply means you have achieved the standard template required by IELTS examiners. Now let's look at what the components or contents or constituents of these paragraphs. The first paragraph you are to write on the day of your essay writing should comprise paraphrase, thesis background statement, and stance. Your first paragraph should show paraphrase, thesis or background statement, and your stance. Now, your stance could be view, opinion, suggestion, merit or demerit. In some cases, it could be considered as advantage or disadvantage. So you get to know your stance from the instruction, from the question. So some questions would ask you, do you agree or disagree? Give your own opinion, or discuss both sides of the argument and give your own opinion. So when you are advised or instructed to give your own opinion, that will be your stance. That's why the stance has in bracket all of these things, because these are possible ways the question should or may appear. So please, some IELTS experts call or see paragraph 1 as introduction. So your introduction should show off the question. So you are meant to copy the question, but not verbatim. Rather, you are copying the question in a paraphrased way. So you have to rephrase the question. Now, after rephrasing the question, you need to express what your plan for the essay really is. And that is what we call the background or thesis statement. Then after that, you need to bring down your opinion, very detailed opinion. Establish it in your paragraph 1. So with that, you have completely done justice to your first paragraph. The second and third paragraphs have the same thread. So you are required to show your topic sentence for each paragraph. Of course, the topic sentences must be totally different from each other. So you are not repeating the same topic sentence discussed in paragraph 2 here when you go to your third paragraph. No, you should bring in a topic sentence in paragraph 2. Then the third paragraph should also show a totally different topic sentence. But in a situation where you are required to either agree or disagree, and maybe you choose to agree, the topic sentences you are to bring in will both be pointing towards agreements, although they will definitely be different from each other. But you are pointing towards the agreement. Now, if the question says discuss both sides of the question and give your own opinion, your paragraphs 2 and 3 would have parallel, in fact, contradicting points. So the first point will be to support the first faction according to the question. Then the third, paragraph 3 will be to support the other faction that are opposing the first people's view. So you are generating 2 different points, one for each. Now, after establishing your topic sentences, you are meant to expatiate on each of those sentences by way of giving detailed explanation or detailed information or detailed insight about those topics. So giving those details would constitute your body paragraph. Right? Now, when you are giving the body paragraph, don't just base your explanations on spellings alone. That's words. Don't base your detailed explanations or information on words alone. No. IELTS expects you to show off figures. So ensure to show off figures. Ensure to bring in dates, year. Ensure to bring in percentage. Try to factor in name of maybe the key player in the situation you are bringing in. Establish also the period that it happened, location, giving name of an environment, very essential. So these are things you need to factor in. Nobody will give you a cue or about what to do, but because you are a creative writer, you are meant to factor in all of these. So writing or coming up with creative ideas will make your essay rich and fact-like. And please note that IELTS is not interested or concerned about how true what you're writing is. You are the author as far as your essay is concerned. So they are reading whatever you pen down, hoping that you are giving them something that is real. So they are not going to make findings or investigations about what you've written, never. So it's just like you writing a novel or a story. You are creating that. It could be a fictional story. So you are creating things that are not as though they be, right? So that's what happens in the essay writing in paragraphs 2 and 3. Yes, please. Okay, so these are things. All right. What you do is tell him to use the old link. Go to his handle, scroll up and locate where the old link is, copy it and paste it on his handle again. Let him join. All right. So those are things you should factor in during your essay writing. Make it fact-like. Do not bother yourself whether there is such name as Krulasa or Professor Kuntasu or Dr. Prushaka. Don't worry about all of those names. Let IELTS examiners go and argue with you what they want to argue with. Right? Yours is that you're providing detailed explanations in ways that they appear to be factual. But of course, you know that it's no fact, but you're making your writing fact-like, okay? So please ensure that you don't just begin to write stories and all you do is just spellings all through. No. So you're bringing name of a key player. It could be name of your neighbor. It could be your neighbor's child. If you're citing an example, you mention that in the year 1942, my neighbor's child by the name, give a name, even though you may not have been born by 1942, but don't worry yourself. Just give a name, right? Then talk about what happened. Talk about the extent it's got to. Talk about the rate, that the whole thing escalated to, right? So begin to factor in all of that in your writing. It will help examiners to consider your writing as something quite creative, right? Then here says an instance, paragraph 3 says an illustration. Both of them simply means examples. But in IELTS, we must avoid informal words or commonly or overly used expressions. So, e.g. or examples are not necessarily expected that you should use. So, instead of saying example or e.g., here we say for instance or an instance. And also, because IELTS detests repetitions, we have decided to now factor in an illustration. So we don't want to say an instance right here, an instance right here. So we are using an instance in the first paragraph, in paragraph 2, and illustration in paragraph 3. The same thing you should try to avoid, repetitions. So when you use a word in a particular sentence, if you want to repeat the same information in the second sentence, you must try as much as possible to bring in the synonyms of the word. So avoid repetitions. Then lastly, let's look at the paragraph 4, which is your conclusion. Now, conclusion is where you do some form of wrap-up on your essay. So there are different templates of concluding your essay. We shall get into that by the time we go deep into the use of the formula to write an essay. So you have to conclude your essay and also bring down the opinion you wrote in your paragraph 1 down to your paragraph 4. But when you're bringing it down, don't bring it down word for word. You are also required to paraphrase your opinion when you're dropping it in your 4th paragraph. All right? So we shall begin very quickly. Let's start with paraphrase. To begin, let's understand what paraphrase is. In IELTS, one of the major reasons a lot of people fail the different modules, the different testing areas of IELTS, is because they have failed to understand that IELTS plays with words a lot. IELTS plays with words a lot. So when you are hoping to see the same thing you have read to be used at the question session, then definitely you will not find any answer. I can tell you that for free. When you are taking on your listening test and you read your questions and you are hoping that the audio would also say the questions using the same words you have read on your question paper, then you will never hear any answer from the audio. So you need to understand that the audio will always read the questions by using the substitute word, that's the synonyms of those words. So for those of us who are always waiting to hear the same words, you'll be there waiting and the audio will tell you that is the end of your listening test. You may now transfer your answers and you have written nothing. Okay, so this is what happens. It is simply because paraphrasing is very basic in IELTS. Anything that has to do with IELTS, paraphrasing plays out often and on. So please, you need to build vocabularies. And when you're building your vocabularies, you need to work on synonyms of advanced words. And when you find the synonyms of those advanced words, you need to find out how they are being used, both in the written English as well as in the spoken English. All right? I hope we understand this. So let's begin. What is paraphrasing? What does it mean? What is paraphrasing? If you're watching from our YouTube platform, please do well to like this video and drop whatever question or concerns you have on the comment section of this video. And always feel free to reach out or share the link with your friends who may need a platform to learn or prepare for their IELTS. So let's continue with the paraphrase. Paraphrasing is a writing technique of restating an information. Paraphrasing is a writing technique of restating an information using synonyms or phrases that still retain the original idea. Right? Paraphrasing is a writing technique of restating an information using their synonyms of the keywords or phrases that still retain the same information as in the original question. All right? Now, let's get started. You need to practically understand how to paraphrase content so that you will also be able to know when a content has been paraphrased. So let's go into some quick tests. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have a serious question right here on the board. I don't know if we can all view what is written right here on the board. Okay, so I'm going to read. It says, It is believed by certain researchers that studying the behaviors of 3 years old children can tell which child will grow up to become a criminal. Is it possible to train up a child to not become a criminal, or is crime a product of human nature? Give your own opinion. This is a deep question. This is a deep question. Now, let's understand how this can be addressed if it appears or comes out as your question. Right? It is believed by certain researchers that studying the behaviors of 3 years old children can tell which child will grow up to become a criminal. Now the question is asking you, is it possible to train up a child to not become a criminal, or is crime a product of human nature? Now, if this is given to you as your IELTS question, remember, the first thing you must do is to copy this question onto your answer sheet. But I said, do not copy the question word for word. You are required to paraphrase the question. So definitely, you are meant to paraphrase this question. Now, but what part of the question, or what part of what we have here on the board do you consider as a question that you should paraphrase? Your question is, what you have to paraphrase should begin from here to this point. This is where the paraphrase ends. This part that asks you, is it possible to train up a child to not become a criminal, or is crime a product of human nature? This part is not for you to paraphrase, no. Rather, it is for you to act on. All right? These are the different questions that you now work or develop or work on as your essay. So let's understand this. Francis, is Francis online? Francis, are you there? Precious, are you there? All right. What about Gospel? Is he online? Yeah, I'm aware. Okay. So now let's understand. The first thing you have to do would be to paraphrase this. And how do you paraphrase? Let me show you the fastest and easiest way to paraphrase and achieve perfect replica of the question. So the easiest way is read the question only once. Please, if you really want to paraphrase accurately, do not read the question more than once. And when you're reading that once, do not read to have a grasp of the question. If you put a lot of interest while reading that once, the brain will begin to pick interest in the question and begins to factor out or think of ways to solve the question. But what you are to do when you want to paraphrase is read once. And when you're reading once, try to get or pick out the words, the keywords in the question that you are 101% sure of their synonyms. Right? So let's look at this together. It is believed. So believed, I can paraphrase it. So on my question paper, I would use my pen or my pencil to identify the words I can paraphrase. So I can paraphrase believed, I can paraphrase certain, I can paraphrase researchers, I can paraphrase studying, I can paraphrase behaviors, I can paraphrase 3-year-old. Okay, maybe I will just paraphrase children in this context. But normally, you don't have to paraphrase children. But I would explain why I'm going to paraphrase children in this context. So I'm going to paraphrase children. I'm going to paraphrase can tell, grow up, criminal. Now, on my question or on my question paper, I have been able to read once, and if you observe, I wasn't reading per reading the way reading should be done. I was actually scouting for the keywords that I can substitute, right? So I didn't actually read, basically. I was trying to get the words I'm sure of. So now that I've identified the words I can paraphrase, I would use my pen or my pencil on my question paper still, and I'll write their synonyms. So it is believed, it is okay. It is believed. So I would say some, just watch what I'm about to do. So certain here, I'll paraphrase it with either some or I'll paraphrase with a number of. So here, some researchers, I would say fact finders. Now the word researcher can be paraphrased either using fact finders or scientists. But for you to use scientists, it means the situation being discussed or the concern raised has to do with scientific research, laboratory activities. That's where you can consider researchers as scientists. But if it is on maybe attitudinal situations, human behavior, and some other things you want to have records of, that do not require some form of scientific practices, then you call such researchers fact finders. So I would say some fact finders are of the opinion that, so here I would change it to are of the opinion or are of the belief that. Original question says, it is believed by certain researchers. And I'm saying some fact finders are of the opinion that. So it's still retaining the same thing, right? That what? Studying. Studying has to do with observing and taking record of. Observing and taking record of what? Of the attitudes or characters, right? Now, behaviors, I'm changing to characters of 3 years old toddlers. So I'm going to, Precious, did you say something? Yes, toddlers. So because of the age specification, so I'm considering them as toddlers, okay? Now, can tell. So you may choose to retain can and say can predict, right? Which child will develop to become a lawbreaker or a fugitive. Now, at this point, you have successfully paraphrased. So all you need to do next would be transfer the paraphrased version of your question onto your answer sheet, right? So let's understand this. So I'm going to begin from here instead of from here. So I would simply say some fact finders, then I'll continue here. that a law breaker. Okay, please let's look at this together. Let's see if we deviated from the main question or if we were able to retain the same information. So the original question says, it is believed by certain researchers, and our paraphrase says, certain fact finders are of the belief. So it's still expressing the same thing, right? Am I correct? Okay, then it continues that studying the behaviors of 3-year-old children, then we say that observing and taking record of the characters of 3-year-old toddlers, then can tell, we say can predict which child will grow up, and we say will develop to become a lawbreaker. Original question says to become a criminal. Now let's look at something. Certain writers or test takers may want to bring in big grammar, turgid words into this. And at the point of maybe wanting to paraphrase grow up to become, they might use the word metamorphose. This is correct, right? Metamorphose means to grow, to grow or develop into something, all right? To evolve into another form. Is that correct? So here, the question says, will grow up to become a criminal. You may choose to say to metamorphose into a lawbreaker. But this word is ambiguous. This word is also a turgid word. So if the examiner is not a science inclined person, this will be a problem to you, the test taker. So it is highly advised that you should go for advanced words that are very precise in the context you are writing. So simply put, our paraphrase question says, some fact finders are of the belief that observing and taking record of the characters of 3-year-old children, toddlers rather, comma, can predict which child will develop to become a law breaker. You have done wonderfully if you are able to get or do this paraphrase. Now, after the paraphrase, according to the formula, the next thing you are supposed to do is to get your thesis or background statement. Now, let's relate the thesis background statement to something that is a little practical that you and I know. During elections in countries across the world, there is usually what the politicians call campaigns. Now, during campaigns, politicians will stand in front of maybe mammoth crowds or their supporters and begin to tell them what they plan to do during their tenure or dispensation or regime. So those things they say to the people, those promises, those roadmaps that they are reading out to the people about what they would do if they are elected into office, we call all of that manifesto, right? Manifesto. In IELTS, your thesis or background statement is synonymous with manifesto. So after paraphrasing the question, you need to give a manifesto that would make or help an examiner to have an insight of what you will be doing in your essay. So your thesis or background statement will always categorically state what you will be doing in your essay. Now, whatever it is you're going to state, must be in line with the questions asked after all of these concerns. Your thesis or background statement must always be in line with whatever question that is raised. So let me help you understand something. Before you make your thesis or background statement, you need to plan your essay. You need to do some rough sketching or rough work. All right? Do a rough planning of your essay before you go to make your thesis or background statement. So let's do this together. Since we have paraphrased the question according to this formula, the next thing is this thesis or background statement. So for you to get into the level of planning your essay, you need to come back to this question and read it like twice or 3 times. Remember, the first time you read the question was not for you to understand, right? You were trying to identify the words you can paraphrase. So you didn't actually have proper understanding of what this question is all about. So, but now that you have successfully paraphrased, you need to now come back here to have clear understanding of this question. So that's why you need to read it twice or thrice. So when you are reading, do not read the paraphrased words. Read the original words so you have your first-hand understanding. Please, I hope you're following this. All right. Now, let's read to understand. It is believed by certain researchers that studying the behaviors of 3-year-old children can tell which child will grow up to become a criminal. Studying the behaviors of 3-year-old children, can tell which child will grow up to become a criminal. Okay, so I think I understand. It means I need to, if I study 3-year-old children, the way they live their lives, the kind of things they do, all right, it can give me an insight, or it can foretell or predict to me if this child will grow up to become a criminal, right? So this is very clear. Now, I would ask myself, what am I then supposed to do? The question is saying, is it possible to train up a child to not become a criminal? Or is crime a product of human nature? Is it possible to train up a child to not become a criminal? Or is crime a product of human nature? So you have 2 things here. First, you need to confirm this, whether it is possible to train up a child to not become criminal, or if it's not. Then you also need to establish if crime is a product of human nature or not. So your planning comes in. Let's look at whether or not it is possible to train up a child to not become criminal. So as humans, what do you think? Precious, what do you think? Do you feel it is possible to train up a child to not become a criminal? Okay, you feel it's possible, right? Please, can you give me 1 or 2 points why you feel it is possible to train up a child to not become a criminal? Please switch on the sound system so that others on the YouTube platform can hear her. Meanwhile, Precious, just a moment. Please, if you're viewing on the YouTube channel, you can as well share your ideas on the comment section of this video. You can just drop very quick comments establishing or stating how it is possible to train up a child to not become a criminal. What are the ways that can be achieved? All right? Or do you think, no, training up a child not to become a criminal is difficult? So whatever it is you feel, you can drop this on the comment section. You can as well tell us if crime is a product of human nature. All right? So, Precious, let me hear your point, please.
In the future depends on like our upbringing. So if a child is trained properly to know right from wrong, then the child will definitely not end up as a criminal. It just depends on the child's mindset.
Mm.
Like because no one born to be a criminal.
Okay. So
That's something that we get to pick up. It's something that you get to pick up. So when you get to know right from wrong, and then you decide on what part you take. So I don't know. Not grow.
okay. So
Naturally.
all right. So according to or based on what you have said, you mean you are saying that the manner at which a child is trained determines whether the child will become a criminal or not. Is that correct?
Yes, if they have like parental guidance and like exposure.
Okay. Okay. Now let's look at it this way. The chances of training up a child to not become a criminal, one, depends on now let's look at this number one. Point number one, the parents or guardian's lifestyle. This is a major factor that will help to determine whether or not a child will grow up to not become a criminal. Do you have a comment there? All right. What does the comment say? Read into the mic.
But sir, you crossed at the first line of sentence. Is this okay? I asked this question 2 years ago.
I crossed what?
You crossed at the first line of sentence. Is this okay? I asked the question yesterday too.
Okay, I think this is coming from Doc. Okay.
Another question
Okay, another question.
from Doc. It is possible by these three factors. One, your environment.
Okay, Doc says environment. Okay,
Their basic education and association.
basic
Education
education
and association.
and
Association. Number three, role modeling.
okay, so this is together and association. Then number three,
Role modeling. No, David Tech, not God.
pardon?
David Tech.
Okay, Mr. David. All right, thank you so much, Mr. David. Okay, yeah, I remember. That's very correct. The crossing during your paraphrase, right? Yes. Um. Now let's come to this point. Yesterday, according to Mr. David, what I have just done here is not much of crossing per se. Look at it. It says it is believed by certain researchers, and I said certain researchers are of the belief. It's just not really crossing, but repeating the information in another way that still remains the same. All right. So originally it says it is believed by certain researchers, and the paraphrase says our paraphrase is coming out as some fact finders are of the belief. Because, okay, why I chose this is because if I want to say it is opined by some fact finders, it's fine. Very perfect. It is opined. That means it is their own ideology. Right? It is of the thoughts by certain fact finders. It is also fine. But I feel a very smooth sailing, all right? A very smooth sail can just be some fact finders are of the belief. It is believed by certain researchers. So, Doc, thank you so much for the observation. Mr. David, sorry. Now, Precious, here are some points to back the possibility of training up a child to not become a criminal. Right? I'm sure you agree with these guys here, right? Okay, because these points are coming from clients on the YouTube platform. So let's look at this together. The first is on the parents or guardians' lifestyle. If the parents or guardians' lifestyle, I will align this last point to this guy here, role modeling, because children mimic whoever they see. So they see whatever you do as something that is right. So it is a way of role modeling, right? So we're going to compress that together. So the parents of a 3-year-old child, if they are living responsible life, definitely, and they are also transferring same to that child, definitely that child will grow up and will not be a criminal. I hope this is clear enough, right? Environment. Environment matters a whole lot, because according to Dr. Maria Montessori, of blessed memory, she said that children begin to unfold their inner being when they interact with the environment. All right? That children begin to unfold their inner being, which is spiritual but manifests in the physical when they interact with the environment. So if you are training up a child, you're nurturing a child in a toxic and polluted environment, in an environment where illegal activities are considered to be normal, in an environment where criminalities are seen as nothing, that child will grow up to automatically become a criminal. So it is very important that you find environment as a key factor that determines whether or not a child can grow up, can be trained to not become a criminal. Then here, basic education and association. When children go to school or wherever they go to learn, it is important to observe or monitor what they learn and the people they associate or mingle with. If a child is learning about criminality with the invention of technology, there are movies, there are gadgets, there are apps, there are games that teach people how to exhibit criminalities. As a matter of fact, there are movies that teach children how to rob banks and go scot-free. There are so many things, activities that are quite illegal that are being heard everywhere. So if a child is not given the right basic education, the child will feed the brain with criminal tendencies. Then it is also said, according to an adage, that show me your friend and I'll tell you who you are. So if you associate with a friend who is into criminalities, who have got a lot of criminal tendencies, who are always taking steps, decisions, actions, who are always doing things, pilfering, telling lies, cheating, doing bullying, and a lot of things, that child of yours will begin to see that friend of his as a hero, as someone who does things and goes scot-free. So you need to understand how these things work, right? Do we have another comment? Okay, so those are points that we can use to establish that it is possible to train up a child to not become criminal. Now let's look at what points can we use to establish if crime is a product of human nature. Can you imagine this? Being asked if criminalities is a product of human nature. That means by default, everyone have got criminal tendency. Right? That's what this expression means. So the question is asking you, is crime a product of human nature? Right? So if you are to consider writing on this, what points can you come up with? Precious, what points can you come up with? Okay, from our YouTube channel, if you have any idea on whether crime is a product of human nature, we would like to get that from you on the comment section. And of course, we're also going to share that right here. But let me say something. Is crime a product of human nature? Well, yes and no. Yes and no. The human mind, the human mind is open to all kinds of things. But the nurturing, the upbringing of a child, like you said, helping the child to know the right from wrongs and helping the child to stick to the right path. This would help the child to live a life or that is quite responsible, right? But if the child is exposed to criminalities, then the tendency that is innate will definitely manifest someday, right? There is no one that was born in an environment called criminal environment. But when you come into the world and you begin to see things and no one advises you on this being wrong and this being the better path to go, and you keep seeing the wrong things all the time, you would end up believing that that wrong thing is the normal thing. So it will bring out the creative evil in one. So you begin to calculate on how to carry out criminal activities. You begin to think on how to go into things that are illicit, unacceptable. All right? So that's why it is a yes and also a no. Right? But let me ask us, according to this question, is it possible to train up a child to not become a criminal, or is crime a product of human nature? Do you think you are supposed to discuss the two questions, or are you supposed to stick to one? From the YouTube platform, do you think you are supposed to discuss the two sides of the question, or you should stick to one? Is it possible we refine, right?
Yes, we find ourselves. We find ourselves by maximizing the opportunity for self-development.
All right. So this is coming from YouTube. Yes, but we refine ourselves by maximizing our opportunities for self-development. That means this person is saying, yes, that crime is a product of human nature. However, we refine ourselves, all right, going towards the path of positivity, towards the path that is considered to be legal, towards the path that is considered to exhibit sense of high level of responsibility for self-development. I agree with this point of view. So crime is a product of human nature, but we are strongly encouraged and advised to go for the good path of life, because criminality ends in shame and untimely mishaps. Right? Okay. Now, having said this, my question was, are you supposed to treat these two questions, or are you supposed to stick to one? Do you think you are required to treat if it is possible to train up a child to not become criminal, and if crime is a product of human nature? No, you are not. You are not to treat the two issues here, because there is a big word here called or. So or means either you go for this or you go for that. So if you feel it is possible to train up a child to not become criminal, draft out 2 or 3 or 4 strong points. Okay? Draft out 2 or 3 or 4 strong points that you're going to discuss in your paragraphs 2 and paragraph 3. That's what IELTS expects of you. But if you feel that crime is a product of human nature, then generate 2 strong points that you are going to discuss, one in paragraph 2, then a second in paragraph 3. Please, I don't know if we are understanding these steps to write an essay. So after planning your points, the next thing to do is give your own opinion. So remember, we have drafted our points to establish that it is possible to train up a child to not become criminal. So we have the points here. Then lastly, we need to give our own opinion. So what is my opinion? What is our opinion? Precious, what is your opinion? Pardon? Okay. No, we were still treating the issue of the possibility of training up a child to not become criminal, and if crime is a product of human nature. Then I was asking everyone, yourself and those on the YouTube platform, if we feel that this question requires us to treat both this possibility of training up a child not to become a criminal, and if crime is a product of human nature. Do you think the IELTS expects you to treat the two parts? And I said no. You don't have to treat both the possibility and crime being a product of human nature. You have to choose one out of the two. So decide if you want to go for the fact that it is possible to train up a child not to become criminal, or you want to go on the path that says crime is a product of human nature. So I said, whichever path you want to take, you are to generate 2 or 4 strong points that you are going to discuss in paragraphs 2 and 3. Precious, do you understand this? All right, nice. Then I also went further to say, at this point, we have taken a path, so to say, And the path we've taken is that it is possible to train up a child not to become a criminal. And what have we done? We have drafted out our points. And these points will be discussed in paragraphs 2 and 3. Then the next thing we are supposed to do is to give our own opinion on the issues raised. So I asked that you should proffer an opinion. Let's see what you feel can be done about this concern raised. Okay, don't worry. Let me help you. Do you have any opinion from the YouTube platform? Okay, all right. So let me help us on what may be done in the form of opinion. Your opinion will take you back to the question or issue raised. Here it says that it is believed by certain researchers that studying the behaviors of 3-year-old children can tell which child will grow up to become a criminal. In my opinion, studying the behavior of a 3-year-old child is not enough to guarantee or to predict correctly that a person will grow up to become a criminal. It is arguable that your studies are not facts, and your studies does not define nature, right? So anybody can display certain behaviors while growing up as a child, perhaps being stubborn, perhaps being self-centered, but that will not define that the person will grow up and live such life. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? So it is possible and arguable that predictions are just individuals' points of view and does not define what happens, exactly what happens in the future. However, it is important that parents and guardians, as well as society, show the right love, care, nurturing on every child, so that it will build the picture that will help the child to make a right choice in life. And they should also be taught at schools about the consequences of criminalities. This is my opinion. They should be taught the consequences, the penalties of venturing into criminalities. So it should be like a subject of its own that would always be taught. Civic education, social studies, religious education. These are subjects that can be introduced at schools to help people shape their mindsets for future decisions, all right, in ways that won't go into serious jeopardy or choices that will not launch them into the negative side of life. That is my opinion, right? So once you draft this on your answer sheet, right? Once you drop, not on answer sheet, on your question paper, once you draft this opinion on your question paper, then you are ready for your essay. Precious, are you there? All right, network keeps kicking. Sorry about that. So I said, my opinion is this. Predictions made by certain researchers or fact finders based on their studies, their observations about 3-year-old children cannot emphatically states what a child will become or what a person will become at old age or maturity, because your observations are just your own ideas. Now, people can display some stubborn attitudes while growing up. People can be self-centered. They don't want to share. People can be mean. People can be isolating themselves. They don't want to relate to people. But those attitudes may definitely change as they grow up. Therefore, for the high chances and possibilities of training up a child to not become criminals, it is pertinent for parents, guardians, as well as society at large to always show great level of love, care, and support to children so that it will put into their minds the picture that they are well respected, that the future is bright for them, and that life devoid of criminality is the best path to take. And also, authorities should bring in subjects or courses that children will be taught at schools to impact and inculcate in them the consequences of going into criminalities. Do you understand me, Precious? So all of that are what I will personally suggest or write as my opinion. So I said, once you have drafted this opinion on your question paper, then you are ready for your essay. All right? So what you do next is you come back to your answer sheet and complete your paragraph 1. So my paragraph 1 will now continue and say, okay. All right, so here is my paragraph 1. The whole of this is my paragraph 1. All right, we have a comment. We have a comment on our YouTube platform. So let's, please, I would have to erase this. Let's write the comment from the YouTube platform. Okay.
Said, should my opinion come within the conclusive part of the essay?
Should my opinion come within the conclusive parts of my essay?
Yes, and secondly,
Okay, and secondly,
using the word child in your paragraph 1, is this okay?
child's.
Child, child,
Because I said A. So the article was aligned. Okay, is that all? All right, so to respond to the first question, should my opinion come within the conclusive part of my essay? Yes, it would come within the conclusive part of your essay, but first, it has to appear in your paragraph 1. Your opinion must appear in your paragraph 1 first. Then, when you go to your conclusion, you also need to bring down your opinion, but not exactly the way you have written it in paragraph 1, but in a rephrased manner. I hope this answers your question. Okay, so let's come to my paragraph 1. You see, essay writing is a serious business. It requires high level of creativity. It requires high level of critical thinking and analysis. Then your exposure as regards dictions, vocabulary. From the question, we have paraphrased and we said some fact finders are of the belief that observing and taking record of the characters of 3-year-old toddlers can predict which child will develop to become a lawbreaker. This is us copying the question onto our answer sheet as the beginning of paragraph 1. And it is important that you paraphrase the question. Okay? Now, after the paraphrase, we went back to the original question to read the question so we can understand. So we read the question and we understood what the question was all about, and we decided to plan our essay. Planning our essay, we had to draft out a couple of points to support the position we have decided to, or the path we have decided to take. So here it says, is it possible to train up a child to not become a criminal? And we are like, yes, it's possible. So we had to draft out a number of points that we're going to use to establish why it is possible to train up a child to not become criminal. Then, reading further, it says, or is crime a product of human nature? So we feel, although yes, but we don't want to talk about that. We want to focus on the possibility of training up a child to not become criminal. Right? So this means you are not to discuss both the possible or possibility of training up a child not to become a criminal, as well as discussing crime being a product of human nature. That you're not to do that as far as this question is concerned, because it says or. Okay, so you have to choose whether to discuss the first one or the second one. But it is also important that you give your opinion. It's emphatically written in the question. So this is what we came up with. In this essay, I will be writing to vividly establish that it is highly possible to train up a child to not become a criminal. Now, for the child you spotted, it's established in the question. Okay? The question says, can tell which child. Okay? So it's singular. So we had to also import that in our paragraph 1. Meanwhile, in my experiential opinion, when you are giving your opinion, it can come from your experience. Your opinion can come from your profession. Your opinion can come from your logical or candid thoughts. So if it's coming from your profession, then it is your professional opinion. If your opinion is in line with your profession, it is your professional opinion. If your opinion is based on your experience over time, it is called experiential opinion. Right? But if it is based on your logical thinking, then you can say in my candid or in my personal thoughts. Right? So let's proceed. It is highly possible to train up a child not to become a criminal. Meanwhile, in my experiential opinion, although crime may be seen as a product of human nature, but it does not mean that studying a child's attitude as a 3-year-old toddler is enough to say for a fact that such child will definitely grow up to become a criminal. Rather, if a child's parents and the society at large can constantly show lots of love, care, support, and always talk such child through the right path of life, then it is sacrosanct that the child will be responsible when he grows up. More so, the authorities should ensure that children are taught the consequences of engaging in criminalities as a subject at schools. So this is my paragraph 1. Precious, what do you think?
What do I think about the paragraph?
Yes, about paragraph 1.
You usually placed everything inside.
Huh?
Usually has everything in it, yeah. It's a great
Okay.
paragraph.
Do you have any addition, or do you have anything we should take off?
No.
All right.
It's okay.
Okay. From the YouTube platform, please, if you have anything you feel was omitted or anything you feel should be removed, let us know by dropping that on the comment section. Perhaps at the end of the video, I would find time to go through all the comments and also react or respond to them on the YouTube. So this is what your paragraph 1 should look like. But I would like to establish something. You see, in essay writing, paragraph 1 is the blueprint of your essay. It is the engine house or engine room of your essay. If you get your paragraph 1 well done, you have solved your essay, the entire essay, you have solved it by 50%. Paraphrasing the question, generating your points on your question paper as rough work, attaching an example to each point you generate, drafting out your opinion on your question paper as rough work, solves your essay, the entire essay, by 50%. Now let's understand how this works. Because you have paraphrased, you have drafted out the questions, you attached examples, and you also have plotted or brought in your opinion. Your paragraphs 2 and 3 are already solved. How did you solve that? Those points you drafted down on your question paper as rough work are what you are to export and drop on your answer sheet as paragraphs 2 and 3 topic sentences. TS. TS means topic sentence. So your topic sentence has already been taken care of when you drafted your points on your question paper as rough work. And because you conscientiously and deliberately drafted those points, the brain already knows what you would like to do. The brain already has the detailed version of that point you drafted out. So the body paragraph of your paragraphs 2 and 3. Remember, paragraph P2 and P3 were just about topic sentence, body paragraph, and an instance, right? The same thing right here. So this TS means topic sentence. This BP means body paragraph. So because you have drafted out the points already as rough work on your question paper, you have taken care of these two parts. Now, since you were the one that deliberately brought out those points, you know what to expatiate. You know the detailed information you want to write about them, which should be your body paragraph. And you also know the example that you would use to buttress your detailed explanation, right? Then your conclusion is all about you giving the synopsis or the summary of those topics you discussed in paragraphs 2 and 3. That will be your conclusion. Then the stance, you've already written your stance in your paragraph 1. So you're bringing it down to your 4th paragraph, but in a paraphrased way. So you have solved your essay by 50% when you do your paragraph 1 well. So please, I would want us to find more time and develop our ability to treat the paragraph 1, right? So that ability will come by practicing paraphrasing, how to rephrase questions. That ability will come by understanding the best ways to create ideas in your essay, right? So those are things we are going to delve into in our next class, right? We shall continue next time. Thank you.